All right, welcome back to Philadelphia Eagles Talk with Geoff and Matt. Welcome everyone into the podcast. Appreciate you watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. We've got so much to talk about. I know we've gone to like a weekly show, but man, there's a lot that's been happening within the 6 days or so since our last podcast. So we're going to dive into all of it. We're going to give our thoughts about it. This is going to be the best independent analysis on the internet. This is why you're coming to this channel, because Matt and I are going to dive in this. We're going to give us some thoughts on what the Eagles are doing. The biggest thing for me, Matt, is this. I'm hearing these Eagle fans that just think, oh, they're just letting all these Eagles go. This is kind of like the premise of diving into our discussion. There's a lot of people that think, and you're already shaking your head, I don't know if you know what I'm about to say, that think that Howie is just setting up to make this huge free agency or big trade.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's not what he's doing. And so anyone out there that thinks that, I mean, it could happen, but I'm just saying it's not. This is not what he's doing. He is strategically setting his team up for long-term success. There's people out there, Eagle fans, and there's a big contingency of them, or else I want to bring it up. I don't really pay much attention to the small, stupid stuff. But when it starts getting traction throughout like WIP and some of the other stations, even though we know that they could be a load of nonsense from time to time. Exactly. They're saying, oh, he's going to trade for Hendrickson to the Bengals. That's what he's saving up for. I'm like,
no,
he's not.
No,
he's not.
So we're gonna load up. They're going to load up on 1 million draft picks, and you're going to see how they're going to manipulate draft picks with shitty teams. Yeah. Maybe not for next year, but for not this year, but next year. You'll see a lot of deals where they're going to look for picks from like Browns, Giants, like anybody that's in that top 10 who did a shitty season this year. Patriots may be one of them. They're going to have a bunch of picks that they're going to trade during draft day to set themselves up nicely from teams they expect to suck. They do it. There's two things that Howie works his magic with. One, get good players and draft well so that you can pay them on rookie deals as long as possible. And then you sign them before they can set the market price. That's why the Cowboys are sucking. That's why all these other guys are signing guys after the market is blown up, because Howie signed his guys the year prior or the first one of the offseason.
Exactly.
You get good scouts that draft good people out of the draft. And then the rest of that story is keep trading with teams that you think are not going to be any good at all for draft picks that may become something. You know, Howie's all about drafting those conditional draft picks. You know, hey, we'll give you this player. We'll give you this set of picks if you give us a conditional pick based on your record next year. And these teams are like gung-ho to just hand over their treasure. And Howie's like, good luck sucking. Thanks for that, top 10 pick. They have a ton of picks too because of
I'm going to get into that. I actually have those actual numbers. We're going to dive into how many picks they have, because it is really impressive. But it's like, maybe there's a lot of fans, but this is like WIP. This is like, some of the mainstream channels in the Philly area that are putting this Hendrickson stuff out there, or how he's going to make he's just saving up. He's cutting back to make this big splash deal. He's absolutely not. It would shock me. And it sounds like it'll shock you. Matt and I, by the way, don't have any pre-talk before we go live. We just, I had no idea what his take was going to be on this, but we're on the same page here. And I think a lot of Eagle fans are as well, but there's another good portion of the Eagle fan base out there that just thinks how he's setting up for a huge trade, and the Hendrickson's the one they're floating out there. And I'm like, no, they're not doing it. They're not doing it. I know it's kind of strange to go through a Eagles free agency without Howie making a big splash deal, because he's done it in the past. But he kind of gave, during his speech at the Combine, he kind of gave indicators that this is going to be different. This is going to be a different free agency period. Expect some losses. He didn't really come out and say expect some losses, but he was trying to say this is not going to be your typical, Eagles Howie off season.
Every Super Bowl winning team ever, especially in the free agency period. Well, I guess only in the free agency period. Everybody who makes a play in the Super Bowl signs a big deal with some other team, and usually they don't pan out because they're not playing next to all those other Super Bowl players. Mm-hmm. And so, Milton Williams is going to make he's going to improve a defense.
For 4 years, $26 million a season. So good for him.
He'll improve whatever team he gets to, but there's no foresight. Like nobody's thinking. Like one of the best analysts I ever listened to on NFL radio back when I had Sirius Radio was the Packers, a former Packers GM. I can't remember his name right now. I'm blowing it. I'm blowing on
Vic Carucci, that guy, or the
not Carucci. It was a guy that ran the front office and signed all the deals. And
yeah, I know you're talking about. I forget his name off the top of my head.
And he was spot on. And when listening to him, was like, man, you're going to school for how to run a business. And that's what the media often misses is, you know, if these people think that there's a big splash coming, I'm like, the big splash you're thinking of is signing Jalen Carter next year.
Right.
You know, that's it. That's
the Eagles need to conserve now and let some of these guys go, because otherwise you can't afford Jalen Carter. You can't afford Cooper DeJean and Quentin Mitchell and some of these other guys that are going to be coming down the pike. You know, you're going to want to retain these guys and Nolan as well. Nolan Smith is going to be demanding a contract in a couple of years. So that's how he's doing. And at some point, he has to make tough decisions on his roster, strategic decisions. I'm sure that Howie doesn't want to let Josh Sweat go. I'm sure for sure. These are his draft picks. We know how Howie gets really loyal to his draft picks.
Yep.
Sometimes to a fault. So you know it hurts him to let Josh Sweat go and to let Milton Williams go, a guy that they found in the third round who is now just signed for $26 million a year with the Patriots.
And how he butted, he went against a lot of the Eagles' highly touted consultants that were in that draft room to go get Milton Williams over people that they thought Howie should have drafted. So Howie's smart with the money. He's learned. I'm gonna Google the guy I'm trying to think of because it's him and Gil Brandt, by the way, the longtime Dallas Cowboys.
I know their show. Their show is always on Sirius, and then they repeat it at like 7 o'clock. I think I know the show you're talking about.
Yeah, I gotta find the guy's name now.
It's a very good show. But anyway, while you're looking that up,
yep.
I mean, does it hurt that the Eagles have lost 5? I mean, this is really incredible. 5 of their 11 starters from the Super Bowl.
That's a big number.
That's huge. I mean, there's no doubt, because there's no way around it, that the Eagles are going to take a step back from their number one defense. It's just you can't lose that many starters and not. You know, it's just a matter of how much of a step back is it going to be. Is it going to be a large step back where they, or they have a mediocre defense next year? Or is it going to be, they'll take a step back but still have a good defense? But, I think the Eagles have enough of a youth guys in there, or some younger guys in there, that are going to be hopefully ready to step in. So let's start with, unless you got the, did you find the guy's name yet?
Not yet. Go ahead and get us started.
All right. So let's start with the guy that me and you had rated really, really high. We already talked about Williams. We know that, him and Sweat were on the top of our list. The guy I was really hoping the Eagles would hold on to, and I know you were saying, we talked about it during our free agency podcast a couple episodes ago, was Isaiah Rodgers. That's the one that I was hoping the Eagles would hold on to. But he did go out there. I mean, obviously he put enough on tape, so he wasn't a big secret. I think that's what happened. The Vikings saw enough of him to ink him for a 2-year, $15 million deal. And honestly, I don't think the Eagles are going to pay him that much. So I think he's worth it, because I think it's a great move by the Vikings, who, by the way, really stacked up their defense. I don't know what you saw that they've done, but they got Isaiah Rodgers. They signed Jonathan Allen, and they also signed Javon Hargrave. So suddenly the defense of the Vikings is, I think, definitely better. And they're like a win now team. They just got to figure out what to do at quarterback now. So, so anyway, so Rodgers, I really hated him going because I don't know about his name slipped me now. Who's the cornerback, number 3 guy now? That will now probably be in the 2.
Keely Ringo.
Ringo, thank you. Yeah, Ringo hasn't shown me, I was far more confident in Rodgers than Ringo. I've seen Ringo look good at sometimes and get beat sometimes. And he also seems to be flag happy occasionally. So now he's young. I mean, they drafted him at like 20 years old. So I think he's even younger than Quinyon Mitchell, believe it or not, even though he was drafted before he was. So he's very young. He's now been in the system this will be 2 years in Vic's system. I do think he's got ability. So I'm not trying to say that, he can't do the job, but I just would have been I guess I would have felt more secure in if they were able to sign Rodgers, but he's gone. He's gone. I think it's a big loss, bigger than probably maybe most fans may think. So it's going to be Kelly Ringo more than likely, unless they. Now here's the other thing. Well, we'll get to it. So anyway, do you have any thoughts on Rodgers? I know that you had him very high on your list as well. What are your thoughts on Ringo if he's the one that ends up being the starting number 2?
So I was surprised, number one, to see that they would release Slay and then not immediately sign Rodgers.
Right.
So that was a surprise. So, with that being said, Rodgers it didn't seem like he signed like a, bust the bank deal, but how he's looking to these guys too. He's also got to figure out a way to keep AJ Brown happy, and restructure. He's going to be working and restructure. So I think all of this comes down to restructuring these contracts in the next couple of years while signing. There's no way, usually you would let Jalen Carter ride to the end of his rookie deal, but not a guy like Jalen Carter. Like all the other rookies you would, Jalen Carter is going to be signing a contract next year, even if he has 1 or 2 years left, because he's going to be.
How do you want to get ahead of
defensive lineman? He's like one of the top 3 defensive.
He's going to set the bar. Yeah. I mean, if Milton Williams signs for $26 million a year, how much is Jalen Carter worth?
Yep.
Probably between $35 and $40 million.
Yeah. I would guess the exactly same, maybe even more. I don't know. He is up there with Myles Garrett. He's on that level. He is a game breaker.
Yep.
So, it also shows that they've got some faith in their young guys, and because both Mitchell and Cooper DeJean panned out, wherever these guys play, that's not a position of need. It's not like we're desperately looking for a cornerback because we lost Slay and Rodgers. They've got enough there. Keely Ringo played well. Eli Ricks was another young guy that was an undrafted free agent that seemed to have the right attitude to play cornerback.
Yep.
And again, maybe they bring back Avonte Maddox on a cheaper deal. So if Cooper goes to the outside, then you'll probably watch him sign Maddox to cover the slot. And then maybe Keely Ringo steps up. Maybe they keep Cooper there. It'll be interesting to see how that goes. Either way, it's not like any of these guys on our staff are like Isaiah Jenkins, where you have the 92 Philadelphia Eagles defense, studs all across the line, studs at linebacker, one stud at left cornerback, studs at safety, and then the right cornerback or the opposite position of Allen gets smoked every freaking play. They don't have that kind of desperation. And the rest of that defense is still going to be good.
Yeah.
It's clear to me that they changed their philosophies. It's probably heavy on Vic Fangio's influence, but they went with getting the middle linebacker signed, and they've got strength up the middle to back up the defensive tackle with Williams walking out and with Rodgers walking out and Slay. You can at least name the guys that are going to be behind them, and they have played well when they've been on the field. So, they're going to need to learn where, the trick will be, got to trust those guys to keep growing in the system of coaches that we have. But we just won the Super Bowl, so they know it works. They know the scheme works, so it's not going to have any problem getting these young guys to buy in.
Yeah, so I agree. I agree with what you said. I mean, these guys have been marinating for a few years now, and it's time for them to it's just their time. We're going to talk about another one soon that their time seems to arrive after some news that broke yesterday. Next is Owen Burks, another guy I thought they would keep because we know that Nakobe Dean's going to miss probably most of next year, recovering from his severe leg injury. And I thought a guy, especially since he only signed a 2-year deal for $5 million in Cincinnati, Owen Burks, to me, I'm like, God, I mean, I don't know how he let him go for if he could have got him or kept him for that much. But at the same time, we're talking about the youth movement. We have Jeremiah Trotter Jr., and apparently they're ready and confident that Jeremiah Jr. is ready to to, be that role, to be that guy. So I think we're excited for that. But to me, I think it still would have been, made sense to bring Owen Burks back for just 2 years at $5 million. But again, Howie must be in. This is what tells me that Howie's in severe cutting mode. Because if he doesn't even sign that cheap of a deal for a guy that would make a lot of sense with Nakobe's injury, that just has all the flags of this is Howie and the Eagles strategically saving and cutting from this roster,
and turning it around
to build for the future.
Howie does not get stale. So I think one lesson that Howie learned is don't let the team get stale, right? Like build a winning champion and do your best, but don't ever rest on your laurels just because you got there. Like he's already thinking, okay, well now we got to offload dudes. So yeah. I say trust in Howie. There's really only been one bad move he's made in the last 4 years now, and that was hanging on to Jalen Reagor.
Well, that and the Huff move doesn't look good.
Well, and don't forget about Huff though, right? So if we lost Josh Sweat because we had signed Huff and it wouldn't make sense to move on or get out of that deal, they're going to have to put some pressure on Huff to be better. He was.
I don't think Vic likes Huff. I don't know if Vic was. It just doesn't seem like Vic was all in on that Huff deal because he hasn't been in Vic's camp, so to speak, since he's been here.
Yeah, that may
I think he might have made that move before I don't know this for sure, but the timeline, did they get Huff before they brought in Vic as the DC?
Yeah, I don't recall.
They may have.
I don't recall. Yeah, so I don't recall, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with Huff in the offseason if Vic Fangio tries to find another spot for him or something. But either way, when we talked about this before about possibly losing the free agent list that we went over, I was not very concerned, the one that they wouldn't have had any depth at would have been Bond. If they signed Bond, then it's okay, now we got our guy. So I thought it would have been if Bond goes, well, then Burks gets re-signed. If Bond gets signed, then Burks probably goes, Yeah. So
let's not forget that the Eagles did retain Bond. So it's not like they've let everybody go. They did keep Bond, which he was number 1 on my list. I think he was 2 on your list.
He was number 1 or 2 on almost everybody's free agent list.
Yeah.
He was the dominant defensive player, even higher than Milton Williams. And then on a lot of the lists I saw, Milton Williams was number 2. So, it's the top 2 free agent guys. They chose to go middle linebacker, which means Vic Fangio probably had a lot of influence there.
I'm sure.
And that's Vic saying, I've got depth at cornerback. I've got depth on D-line. One place I can't, if we're going to spend money, why don't we just keep the linebacker there? Because the rest will be good as well. So I'm not too concerned. I don't think there's any big move on the horizon. I'd be shocked if there was. I mean, they re-signed Barkley too. So the money went to Barkley and Bond. So there is no big move on the horizon. They don't have any money. So
I agree. Well, here's the thing. They do have money by letting these guys go, but this money that they do have is not penciled in for this year.
Yeah.
It's for Jalen Carter within the next year or two, probably next year. It's for Cooper DeJean. It's for Blankenship. His contract, I think, is up next year. You definitely want to re-sign him. I mean, that was another great draft pick. Was he even a draft pick, or was he a guy that brought in as an unrestricted or an undrafted free agent? I think he was
I thought he was a late round draft.
It was a late round. Either way, they found him as diamond in the rough. But his contract, they're gonna have to re-up on him. So, back to our original point, I don't think I'd be shocked if Howie is gearing up to make some big, huge trade, like for Hendrickson or something like that. This it's not happening.
Especially if they're thinking how he missed on Myles Garrett. And I'm like, no, I think that was a smokescreen anyways, just to make the Commanders pay out the nose for him if they got him.
Yeah.
But Andrew Brandt is the name I was trying to think of, which was funny. I named his probably his dad. I don't know if they're related, but Gil Brandt's the Dallas Cowboy, former GM, stuck in my head. But Andrew Brandt was the salary cap money guy for the Packers for years and is always on NFL radio as a guest host. And when he talks about contracts and money, it's almost like, it's like finding the decoder book for how free agency works. And you're like, yep, not surprised. That team was starved for cash, had to unload. This team's loaded with cash. They're going to buy a bunch of guys, probably overpay a bunch of guys that they don't really either need, or they just don't realize that they're not going to be surrounded by the talent.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Milton Williams does on his own. Going to the Patriots, there's no Jalen Carter he's going to be lining up to.
No.
So, and we think that Milton's a good player. I mean, he's
great.
Good. There's no doubt he's good. Is he going to be as good as he's been? Maybe. If he is, then the Patriots definitely are going to get their, value. But I don't think it'll shock any of us if he's doesn't look as good, because he's not being singled on every single down. Maybe he's the one that's going to start drawing double covers now. Let's see how he does with that,
Yeah.
So, but we wish him well. I mean, he was a great Eagle and really good player. And it was a good move by the Patriots. There's no doubt he's a good player. So good job by the Patriots. Gave him a lot of money. One of the other moves today, another loss for the Eagles. This is one that Matt had him lower ranked than I did, even though Matt's been a bigger fan. I don't want to say fan, but he's had more of a, I don't know what the word is. You've always just talked more highly of Gainwell than I have, but Gainwell went to the Steelers, signed a 1-year deal. But when we did our free agent rankings, you had him lower than I did on our list. So
because they
surprise you at all.
Largely because they drafted Shipley from Clemson last year, and then he got a few carries, but then got some carries in the Super Bowl too, and he proved that he can catch and run and block. So, he's on the rookie deal. It just makes sense. They're not going to sign Gainwell when they've got a guy on a rookie contract.
Yeah, and he's a guy that what I always said about Gainwell, he's a really good guy to have in there because he's very versatile. He can catch the ball well. He can run it if you need him to be a temporary fill-in for an injury. But the move the Eagles made today, I like a lot. I think Howie made a good move getting AJ Dillon. He's probably the only guy other than Barkley that has as big of quads. He's another load. It's almost like the Eagles are like, man, when we want to mash this year, we're gonna mash. We'll give Barkley a breather and we'll bring AJ Dillon in. You're not gonna get a break on defense. They're both like big, bulky. Like he's another load. And I like it because he's also a guy who's started in the past when Jones has been down in Green Bay. He's proven, so, knock on wood, if Barkley was to miss a few games next year, you can bring in, I guess what I'm saying is I'd rather have AJ Dillon as the number one than Kenny Gainwell.
Yeah, I would too. And AJ Dillon's never run behind a line like this one before. So like those, he can't fit through a tiny space.
No.
He's going to have road grading moments on this team where safety is going to be like, no, I don't want to tackle that. Yeah. Low to speed. Yeah. He is. I saw the side-by-side pictures of Dillon and Barkley.
Oh, they have him out there? I just know that guy, he's stock.
His legs are like like Barry Sanders-sized legs, just like thick.
And maybe they call him Quadzilla. That's his nickname.
Yeah. Maybe that's a move that shows that the Eagles are concerned that maybe they'll ban the tush push because they.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Exactly. Yeah, he's a good goal line back. I know the Packers used to use him a lot inside the 5. Like they would pull Jones out and give Dillon a 3-yard run. So I like that move a lot. I don't know. There's no numbers out there, at least that I've seen, as far as what they signed him for. But I don't think. Again, the way Howie's shopping, I doubt they paid him a lot of money. It's a 1-year deal anyway. Yep. So I thought it was a good move. So Gainwell out, in comes AJ Dillon. We talked about Slay being released. Now he's going to be officially released. There's some issues yesterday that came out. Well, he wasn't really released yet, so he's not going to be a Steeler. Eagles confirmed today that yes, they're going to still release him. I think it's June 1st or something with the June 1st.
Got to deal
whatever it is.
Correct.
Yeah, so he's and what it sounds like is that the Eagles are, the Steelers rather are going to end up with Slay. So that's a good spot for Slay to go to. Steelers will be interesting because they're one of the teams that, like, when you see Aaron Rodgers still out there. I was actually talking to a Steeler fan this week, and I'm like, you know what? It really kind of makes a lot of sense for Aaron Rodgers if he's going to go anywhere to go to the Steelers. They're loading up with weapons. They have 2 good wide receivers now, although Pickens, I think, is a head case. But, even Metcalf could be a head case sometimes.
Yep.
But Metcalf and Pickens are a pretty good 1-2. Now Pickens doesn't have to be the number one guy. And
now Gainwell's their running back.
Gainwell's one of their running backs. Yeah, because Harris went to
Harris Chargers. Yep.
So yeah, is Gainwell the number one? They must have.
No, they've got
they have, Waller. What is that? His name? Wallen, something like that. Don't they have another running back named Waller or Wallen?
Yeah, number 30. I can't think of his. I keep thinking of Willie Parker.
So yeah, they got him and Gainwell now. So that's a team I could see Aaron Rodgers maybe going to. I mean, eventually the Steelers got to find a quarterback of the future, but I could see Aaron Rodgers going there, or even like Minnesota. I don't know if McCarthy's going to be ready yet, but Minnesota might be a landing spot for Aaron Rodgers. Anyway, so Slay is more than likely end up being the Steelers with the Steelers. The Eagles also traded Kenny Pickett to the Browns, got back Dorian Thompson-Robinson back, and a 5th-round pick. They also sent a 6th-round pick to Pickett. So this is great news for Matt and I, because more than likely now McKee is going to be the number 2. I don't think it's Dorian Thompson-Robinson. He's more like a project quarterback, so I don't think he's really going to threaten McKee at all for the number 2. But I'm sure they might have a training camp battle for that, just to say. But I think McKee will beat him out easily.
Yep.
He's what he's really good for, I think, is like, especially with Williams, not Williams. Who's the Washington quarterback?
Daniels. Jalen Daniels.
Daniels. Guys like Daniels. Jalen, right? Or Jaden Daniels. Yeah, with some of these quarterbacks that are, scat backs, these quick. He's a perfect guy for the scout team.
Yep.
For the Eagles to practice, playing against these agile, mobile quarterbacks. And he also played a little bit. I mean, he's got 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions in his career. So that's what I mean. I don't think he's going to be threatening McKee at all.
He did his best on the Browns.
Yeah, and he was on the Browns. But by the way, they mentioned this. You'll laugh at this. Somebody was listening to some radio show, and that's when they mentioned how his career stats are 1 touchdown and 9 picks. There was one season this guy goes, yeah, but it's better than. And he was talking about, there was 1 year, and I don't remember this. Maybe you will. There was 1 year. It was probably after Bobby Hoying had that great game against Cincinnati when they were like, oh, the next coming. There was a season where Bobby Hoying started the season with no touchdowns and 9 interceptions. I actually don't remember that, but
I think that was probably the year after that Monday night game.
Yeah, it probably was.
Yeah. He went off a cliff like hard.
Yeah, he did. Wow. Like, I don't remember him having that bad of it. I definitely remember falling off a cliff. But according to the guy that mentioned, I didn't stat check it or anything, but he said that Hoying started off the season with no touchdowns and 9 picks. And you guys, Bobby Hoying goes way back, so I'm sure unless you're in at least your 40s, you probably have no idea who Bobby Hoying is. But
it was in that post Randall Cunningham era where we were like, can anyone throw a freaking football?
Yeah.
Like, God, awful.
Yeah, and he came in on that Monday Night Football game once against Boomer Esiason and won a big shootout.
4 touchdowns.
So like, oh, we found a quarterback, Bobby Hoying. That was it. It was all over after that. Talk about a flash in the pan. He is the flash in the pan personified. All right, so, and we talked about Dylan being acquired today. So that's all that brings us up to date as far as the moves and the losses so far that the Eagles have had. Now, what does all that mean? We're going to get back and circle back to what Matt and I were talking about right at the beginning of the podcast now. So here's what the Eagles have accumulated or will be because of these losses. And letting some of these guys go and these big contracts that they signed, they're going to get pretty high compensatory picks. They're going to get a 3rd-round pick for Milton Williams. That's a 3rd-round compensatory pick. They might even get a 3rd-round pick for Josh Sweat. It's either going to be a 3 or a 4. That'll be yet to be determined, but it's still going to be an extra 3rd-round pick or 4th-round pick for Josh Sweat. Even Rodgers is going to bring back, I think, a 5th or a 6th pick.
Mm-hmm.
So, as of right now, okay, the Eagles over the next 2 years have 20 draft picks. 20. That's 20. And out of that 20 over the next 2 years, 11 of the 20 are in the first 4 rounds. And 17 of the 20 are in the first 5 rounds.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So
a lot. And Howie drafts pretty darn well in those middle rounds. Those middle rounds are full of more linemen, right?
Yeah.
That's very good. Yeah. Milton Williams was 3rd round, right?
Third round pick.
Yeah. So that 3rd through 5th round, Jason Kelsey was a 5th
I
round
think
pick.
Josh Sweat was a third round pick.
Yeah. So they're going to crush it by going O-line and D-line with all those picks. They'll probably go. I'm not sure they make a move this year to move up at all. I think they might just grab a best player available at 31 or 32.
Right. They might move back.
They might, yep, and grab more high picks.
Think about it. How many people, like, how there's always 1 or 2 people that fall? If the Eagles are not interested in them because it's not a position of need, they'll grab a couple more picks and just drop back into the.
They'll grab a couple picks from those bad teams that are at the beginning of the second round.
Back into the first round to grab the guy that's fallen.
Yep.
Could be a quarterback. The Eagles don't need one of those. Could be one of these quarterbacks, even though it's not a strong quarterback draft, but it might be a quarterback because it's not a strong draft. Maybe there's one of these guys that's one of the decent ones that's still there at 32. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to want to jump into that and see if we get into that and grab them. So we'll see. It wouldn't surprise me if Howie – we're going to have plenty of time to talk about the draft, but it definitely wouldn't surprise me if Howie, makes a trade and trades out of the first round.
Just for the record, too, Mekhi Becton's still an Eagle right now, right?
As of right now, well, he's still a free agent.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's on the open market.
As far as I know, he is not. I didn't check before we went on here to see, but I haven't heard that he's gone anywhere. So I want to say that as of right now, which is 9:30 on.
If he through Friday without being signed, I'd be surprised. But if he does, the Eagles might bring him back.
Well, let's talk about this. So here's the huge, probably the most surprising move that ticked off a lot of Eagle fans. I won't say that I was ticked off about it, but I definitely was puzzled. Like, it had me shaking my head. And that is the Eagles and Howie traded DJ Johnson to the Texans for, and I actually meant to go search this guy's name. Do you remember the guy's name? I know it was something Green, right? The tackle or the guard?
Neil something.
Okay, Kenyon Green.
Who,
as of right now in his career, is 100% bust. Like, he has been benched even. He was a former first-round pick. He was the 15th pick in the draft. He was picked 2 selections after Jordan Davis in that draft. So a high draft pick. He's got all the, quote, tools, but he was benched last year on the Texans, who aren't even known for really having that good of a line. So
he's a tackle or a guard?
He's a guard. So he is a guard, which now makes you wonder if Howie's like, well, we're not going to be able to afford Becton. Let's bring in a guy who's a project. The only thing that I'm trying to justify this for, because on the surface, it just makes no sense to let CJ go. But if they know they're going to lose Becton, they only have Steele there as a guard to move in for Becton, who has been okay, nothing spectacular. But you can bring in a project, bring him to Stout University, and see what happens. A guy that has all the tools, let Stout work with him, and maybe you can turn him into what he's supposed to be, a top prospect guard coming into the draft. So I kind of see the plan and reason why they are taking a shot. He was also one of the 30 visits. Every team, every draft has got players they bring in. Like, they get their 30 guys that they bring in and actually talk to. So this guy was one of the guys that the Eagles brought in the year that they drafted Jordan Davis. So they were high on him in that draft. And so that tells me that the Eagles know this guy. They know the player. That Stout knows the player, because they're not going to bring a guy in that Stout hasn't checked and said, yeah, bring him in. And they're certainly not going to trade for a guy that they haven't run by Stout neither. So,
and I don't necessarily think it means.
But what you're losing was that.
I don't necessarily think that means Becton is gone either. So when they gain this guard,
no, I don't say it automatically means that.
Yeah,
no. I think as the longer he goes without being signed, I think Eagles are going to have more of a chance of bringing him back. So we'll see. But I'm just saying let's just say it's at least a fallback plan if they don't get Becton. So it makes sense to that level. But to let CJ go again, he's been an Eagle for twice in his career, and both times he was an Eagle, they went to the Super Bowl. Is that just a coincidence or not?
No.
And also, He's played 18 career games with the Eagles and has 12 interceptions.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. That's
Which
a crazy
is insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't
Again,
really get
another
this
contract though. Like he would have been another contract that we would have had to sign at the end of next year, right? Wasn't he on a 2-year deal?
2 years left. They signed him to a 3-year deal going into this season. So he had this
great.
year, next year, and one more year.
Maybe
they would have probably re-up him after next year, though. That's true.
Yeah, they probably don't want to carry too many safeties, and they probably don't want to give up on Sidney Brown. And
that's what it is. It's got to be that. It's the youth movement. It's, here's another guy. We talked about Ringo earlier.
Yeah.
Sidney Brown, who Matt and I freaking love that pick. We love this player. So I'm anxious. Like, I mean, as much as I love Sidney, I still can't, it still bothers me that CJ's going. But at the same time, I'm super excited that this looks like this opens the door for Sidney Brown to be our starting safety, a year removed from his torn ACL, which he had problems with that knee, so that his surgery went okay, but he had issues with rehab, just getting back 100%. So he's going to have a full year now, or 2 years removed from the injury, which again, that the whole injury thing ticks me off. We want to talk about something that ticks me off because that's a game that he should never played in. That was the week Giants 18 game, meaningless game against the Giants. Freaking ridiculous. But anyway, that being said, I'm excited for Sidney because, what you lose with CJ in terms of passion and intensity and physicality,
Brown will bring it.
Brown will bring that and then some. So I'm not worried about that part of it at all. But the ball hawking,
I'm not worried about the ball hawking. I think that'll be there too.
18 games.
Those are crazy stats, but I'm not worried about the ball hawking. I think Brown will have plenty of interceptions. He can move and play center field, no problem. Yeah. My problem is the overrunning of tackles. Like GJ was an incredible run defender. Like he filled so many gaps where the running back's gone. And CJ's like, no, I'm going to stick you. And I'm going to stick you like Steve Atwater would have stick you back in like mid-'80s, I
still remember that tackle he made one-on-one against Pacheco in the first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That was dead one-on-one, mano-a-mano, and Pacheco's a physical running back. He's not a big guy, but he runs as hard as hell. And those two guys, bam! It was CJ that stuffed him.
He was fearless, and he was a great tackler. So that's the part that Brown, I think.
Wasn't it Bijan Robinson earlier this year, too, on the goal line? Didn't he stuff him, too?
Yeah, he sent tons of guys backwards this year.
Yeah.
That's the part where Brown, he sometimes overruns.
Do it, but he might miss.
Yeah, he's not.
His own player knocked him out.
A little bit better, more accurate, but that's the only thing. I don't think that's too much of a loss because Brown's there. Plus, I've seen a mock draft already that says that Malachi Stark's the Georgia Bulldogs like top-rated safety, and you know how he loves Bulldogs at this point. And I'm like, well, maybe they fill it by going with safety at 32. So if Stark's,
I have heard that too. Yeah, and that guy's supposed to be really good, and it's possible he may be there at the end of the draft.
Yeah, he's supposed to be like an Ed Reed type. So it's like, okay, like give me Ed Reed on a rookie contract, and how he's making money again by drafting really well. So we'll see. That will reveal itself in the draft what that plan was with CJ GJ. But that was probably the most shocking, right? Like that
shocked the hell out of me. I did not see that coming. I mean, I guess it's more shocking because I didn't even think there was that remotely was even possible to see because of the season he was coming off with. And he's not like super expensive. He's got a pretty good contract, but it's not like it's a major, salary cut with not having him here. But
he's an interesting one. That one's the one they'll have to work the hardest to replace, I think.
Yeah, and I think Sidney, I think he'll have a whole off season because that's the other thing. Because he was rehabbing, he wasn't able this past off season to have a full training camp and learning Vic's defense and all that. So that would help. That's going to help Sidney too because he's going to be in from day one, learning Vic's defense. Because here's the thing: Vic won't play you if you don't know what you're doing. There's no doubt because you have to know what you're doing for Vic to send you out there. So I think Sidney didn't really have that opportunity to learn that defense this year because he was rehabbing his ACL. So We'll see.
Christian McCollum was the first guy that came off the bench.
Right. Well, I think that's because he was there during all the offseason.
Yeah.
Learned the defense.
Vic probably has some confidence in him as well. So it's probably Vic is probably no, I don't think we'll miss him all that much.
Yeah.
Clearly not.
That's a good point. We talked about Stoughton having a say in who's the Eagles bring in. And there's no doubt that there's maybe not like past defensive coordinators with the Eagles, especially recent years, where he has a lot of pull within the organization. Vic does. So Vic, I don't think would have okayed CJ leaving.
Big gaping hole.
Yeah, if he didn't think that he's got, whether it's this Georgia safety or Sydney, that can come in and. Well, here's the other thing. Here's the other. I'll throw the curveball. Here it comes. The curveball is, what about Cooper DeJean moving to safety?
Yeah, you can fill in the role that TJ does, right? He's got the solid tackling and all the cover skills, so that could maybe work there. But I feel like I want Cooper closer to the line of scrimmage.
Oh yeah, I do too. I don't want to move him, but I'm just saying he's a guy that they could move to safety.
They could put him anywhere. Who knows where Cooper goes? He can play anything and be a top. So
yeah,
I think that's what they're going to figure out in the preseason. They're going to be like, Cooper, exactly. You're going to go wherever our biggest need is for you, because that means we have less of a gap at these other spots. So if Keely Ringo emerges on the outside, maybe they keep Cooper inside. If they have trouble getting the safeties up to speed, then maybe Cooper goes to safety. But if he moves to safety, then they have the same problem of what they just traded. Now you've got too many safeties in the house again. So
I just had to put the super up because I didn't spend time making it. But again, I forgot to put it up when we were talking about it.
Well, at least you spelled it all correctly.
I spelled it right. I'll hide it now.
Those of you just turning in, we're talking.
Just turning in. Yes, we were talking about 15 minutes ago, the few losses. We need a producer, damn it.
Producer.
All right. Well, I think we probably covered everything for now. Free agency is still going on, but definitely all of the hot button and all the big players for the most part, except for Becton, he's still out there, have kind of come off the board. We'll see what the Eagles. I mean, sure, Howie's probably going to do some bargain hunting now. Because, this is what he does. Like, that's how he got Bond last year, matter of fact. Got him for super cheap. So we'll see what Howie does. I don't think the Eagles are done making any moves, but they're not going to make a big splash. I mean,
who's out there? Like, you would have to trade for a big splash at this point because there's nobody.
Well, yeah, that's what they're saying, that they're going to make, that he's loading up to trade for Hendrickson.
Nah.
Of the Bengals. I'm like, first of all, why would the Bengals get rid of him?
Well, they did tell him to request a trade because the Bengals don't like paying people, as Joe Burrow says. But I don't know. Like, they're not going to be in a market for that. Like, you're going to have to give up way too much. I don't see it happening.
And you got to pay the guy. I mean, they just signed him for $1 bazillion.
Yeah.
And that's the whole. Why would Howie be cutting everyone just to bring in another huge salary?
Yeah, they would have paid Sweat.
All these guys that we were just talking about at the beginning of the program that are coming up with their contracts.
Yeah.
So that's why it's not happening. So anyone thinking this is that Howie's just building up or making all these moves and not signing all these guys to make some huge move,
no,
it's not happening. So I would just temper your expectations if you're one of those that are expecting Howie to do something like that.
Let Dallas go do that and put themselves in salary cap hell for the next 2 decades. So
yeah, they pretty much already are. Although that was a nice. I'm surprised they even let Turpin go to free agency, because I mean that's a guy that I would have sewn up if I was Dallas, not even letting him go to free agency. Yeah. They're lucky nobody picked him up because that guy's dangerous as a punt returner.
And he came up last season as a receiver too. So
yeah, he's a guy they should incorporate more in their offense. Actually,
I think they lost DeMarcus Lawrence too. So
they did. Yeah, he did go somewhere. I forget now, but yeah, he's gone. Yep. So they lost Lawrence. What's his name? Retired on the offensive line.
Yeah, Zach Martin.
So Dallas, and they lost. I think Dowd. I don't know if they signed a running back yet. I don't even know who's going to be running the ball, because that Dowdle guy who ended up over 1,000 yards, he's actually a free agent. So they didn't even sign him.
Is Zeke still on the roster?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they'll bring that Dowdle guy back because he actually ran pretty well for them. But he's a free agent. Like Dallas didn't even lock him up, so anyone could grab that guy.
Dallas is playing checkers. Everyone else is playing chess around them. The Commanders are the only ones that are making smart moves.
Yeah, Commanders. Yeah, they re-signed Zach Ertz, so Ertz is back there. I know that
they signed both tight ends. Bates.
They did. Okay, and they brought back Bobby Wagner too. So that's obviously that guy can still play. I don't know. That guy seems to be ageless.
Yeah,
because he's been playing forever, but he's a great player. And they signed the wide receiver there before the free agency started. They got not signed him, but they traded for Debo. So yeah, I mean, we knew Washington, they're on the up and up. So I tell you what, the Giants made some pretty good moves, I have to say. I mean, I know they still don't have a quarterback yet, but they got that safety from the Dolphins is really good, and they got one of the better corners that was out there. So their defense is starting to look pretty good.
They're at least talking to Rodgers, is what.
And they're talking to Rodgers too. Apparently, they really want Rodgers, but it's a matter of Rodgers doesn't seem to really want to be a Giant. So
he knows he'd have to listen to Daboll. I think Rodgers is a head case at this point. I would avoid him like the plague.
Yeah. He well, plus he probably wants to play for a winning team, so I'm sure he doesn't want to go to. He just is coming off the Jets, and that's why I think it's only going to be like I could see Pittsburgh for sure, or Minnesota. Either one of those teams, I think I could see Rodgers going to. If he goes to the Giants, I mean, I don't know. The Giants are. I don't know what to think of the Giants. I do like some of their moves some of the signings they made. That defense.
Do they have a quarterback on the roster? Is DeVito?
They have the Italian guy. That's it.
Tommy DeVito.
They have him. That's it. That's the only quarterback right now in the Giants roster. And the speaking of quarterbacks with the Giants, Daniel Jones went to the Colts. So that's it.
I saw him run all over him when he was an Eagles at quarterback.
Yeah. So that's kind of an interesting move.
Makes sense because they've got a mobile quarterback offense type thing in Indy anyways.
Yeah, they get Richardson there. Richardson, who can't stay healthy, and when he's played, he's been up and down.
No, he had like an 8 quarterback rating in last year, I think.
Yeah, it hasn't been that great.
Like 40.
He does have a winning record, though, when he starts, ironically, though.
Yeah, 40-something% completion percentage he had in one game.
Yeah, 47. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah, that's bad. Yeah, you're not going to make it in the league with a 47% completion percentage.
No.
Yeah, you're not going to last long. All right, anything else before we wrap it up? We'll cut it off and
no, I think I'm stoked.
Next Wednesday.
I think I don't. It looks like the Eagles lost like the floodgates were open, but that's what happens to every Super Bowl team. I remember the Bucs when they won with John Gruden, and Dexter Jackson had an interception or 2 in the Super Bowl. So he goes out and he signs like the biggest free agent deal for safety. Never heard of him again. Never heard his name as like a dominant Pro Bowl player ever again. All of that happens all the time. How many years have we been waiting for Sweat to have the season that he did? And then the game that he did.
Sweat was just streaky. He would always go like 5 or 6 games without doing much, and then he'd go the next 5 games, get 8 sacks. I mean, that's kind of how.
And for that money, for the money that they're going to pay him, I'm like, no, you need a Jalen.
$76 million in 4 years.
You need to pay the guys like Jalen Carter that were there. We asked when we had that podcast about 4 or 5 weeks into the season when we were really frustrated. We were like, Jalen, you got to play like that every game. And it seems like they listened to our podcast, and all of a sudden Carter was there every game from there to the end of the season, and the defense rode his back all the way to the Super Bowl. Yep. So these other players aren't at that level. So did you want to sign all these guys and let Carter walk? No.
I know, exactly. He's the one. He's the engine. The others are the pistons, I guess. But he can't do much without the engine, man, and that's Carter. So that's the guy you're going to want to pay, and he's going to be a big chunk of money.
Yeah.
He's not going to be cheap. He's going to be the highest. He might be, he might be a contract close to what Garrett just got. He might be pushing 40-something million a year. I mean, we'll see. It's going to be a lot, no doubt.
if the Eagles are moving space to make a big play, that could be it. Maybe they sign Carter halfway through next season, and they're like, lock him up now.
Try to get ahead of it, yeah.
For 5 years, 6 years, so we don't have to pay the setting of the market. You know.
Yeah.
So when Milton Williams finishes up his deal and he's ready for another, watch him set the market. Maybe he'll have a great 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, and the other thing is we didn't really talk about it much, but I tell you what, I watched some video, and I remember watching during the season, just a Jobo, I think it's a Jobu, right, or a Jobo. He would show up, during the games, and when he was in there, and then I just watched just a quick little highlight thing. He's good. I mean, I don't want to say he's gonna be another Milton Williams, but
similar traits though.
Definitely got ability. He's got violent hands.
Yeah,
much like Carter. He reminds me of Carter only in a sense with his hands. He's very aggressive and quick with his hands.
Yeah.
That comes off. And so if he could just learn how to, just become a better pass rusher, and he seems to be pretty good against the run. I don't remember him ever not playing good when he was in there. So
no,
I think there's some hope that he can really fill in for Williams and do a pretty good job there. We'll see.
Plus,
we talked about the picks the Eagles have. This is a very deep defensive tackle and defensive end draft.
Yep. Which
so they could use a lot of guys, a lot of these picks to rebuild.
Look, Jalen Hunt came on at the end of the season too, and also had himself a good Super Bowl. So it's not like, oh my God, we lost Sweat. Who's going to play? I'm like, who's going to play? Nolan Smith, Jalen Hunt. We got our starters already on the squad. So just draft some of these deep defensive ends, coach them up.
Yeah, we need depth. We're definitely lacking depth now because those two guys have now been bumped up to being starters.
Yeah. So, one free agent to mention, just because he was a former Eagle, though, Hassan Reddick signed with the Cardinals, so he's back with Jonathan Gannon for a 1-year deal.
I thought he went to the Buccaneers.
Was it the Buccaneers? Maybe it was the Buccaneers. You know what? You're right. It was the Buccaneers.
Yeah, Sweat went to Cardinals.
Sweat. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm forgive my Alzheimer's. The
where's the producer?
Buccaneers have got.
Yeah, he went to the Bucs, I think, for $12 million a season or something like that.
Yeah, which is also Eagles aren't going to pay that. They've got Jalen Hunt, Nolan Smith on rookie deals. They don't need to sign anybody until they get Carter. Carter will be the next big guy on defense that gets signed on the Eagles.
Yeah, you got Carter and Blankenship. They're going to have to re-up it soon. And then after that, it'll be DeJohn and Mitchell and, Sidney Brown will be starting. Sidney Brown's contract will be coming up if he gets the starting gig.
And you never know. One of those safeties will probably move on as well. If they draft Starks this year, then maybe it's Starks and Brown that end up being the starters for the next 4 years. And maybe Blankenship, as much as we love them, maybe he's out the door. That's how the NFL works. So
that's how it is. It's not like the old days. There's no steel curtain. Steelers that stick around for 10 years.
And Howie is on top of the forecast of where you should go with the money. I think you learned a lot from Andy Reid's years not to get stale. Howie's been in that building a long time, and he's been through Andy Reid, Chip Kelly, lots of mistakes being made, and he's almost perfect the last 3 years.
Howie's been. That's what I mean. You almost got to just trust in Howie. He has the credibility and the experience now to just not jump to conclusions, not think the world's ending. There's always a plan. There's a plan. And he talked about it. He didn't say any details, but you go back to that interview that he gave when he talked to the press at the Combine, how he was basically telling everybody this was going to be a different offseason and basically get ready for some changes.
You got to offload the boat. The boat's getting too full of money.
Yeah, it would. Listen, would it be great to bring back Williams and Sweat and everyone and know that we have the number one defense ready to rock and roll going into next year? Of course. But that's just not how the NFL works these days. It's just that's the day Reggie made that first free agent deal and went to Green Bay.
Yes.
Ever since that day, the NFL is a different game. There's no keeping teams together for 10 years.
For long term, if Howie and Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts are on the same page, Hurts winning the number one thing, I can totally see him wanting to be like Brady and restructuring his deal every 2-3 years to be get the players. I'm staying here. Let's restructure.
That's another thing. Okay. I'm glad you brought up Hurts. Hurts already. Now, they just signed him, last year? He's already now down to the 10th highest scoring highest paid quarterback.
Yeah.
So he's when I won a Super Bowl, I'm a Super Bowl MVP. So don't be. That's another guy. Listen, I mean, if Hurts has another good season this year, we all think he will. Obviously,
they're going to redo his deal.
After that, even though he's got 3 or 4 years left in his contract, the Eagles going to probably want to renegotiate and get him back up into the top 5 of quarterbacks. So they're going to have to. So don't think Howie's not keeping that in mind too. That they're going to have to probably re-up Hurts before his contract runs out because he's now 10th already in paid quarterbacks. So. Listen,
I can see him adding
down to Howie, and this is how you could tell who the core players are. Sweat was not a core player.
Nope.
Milton Williams was not a core player.
Nope.
The core players are going to be Carter, Hurts, AJ Brown, Smith,
and the right tackle and left tackle.
Offensive line.
Yep.
Jurgens, that's another guy. They're going to sign Jurgens. So there's another guy that's going to make a big contract. Blankenship, because they're going to re-up him, I'm sure, pretty soon. Bourne, they paid Bourne. He's part of the core. That's a sign that Howie's like, Bourne is a core player.
Yep.
So,
and we're 4 years out from Cooper DeJean and Kenyon Mitchell. So Howie's already got his mind where it needs to be.
Exactly. So don't panic, Eagle fans. That's the message. Don't panic. Howie's got a plan. Howie's got 20 picks in the next 2 years. We're going to be all right. Now, they're not high picks, but we don't need high picks.
He's also going to have a couple veteran players. Once free agency starts to wind down, we'll see where Stephon Diggs is at because they could probably add a wide receiver if they're not too big on like Johnny Wilson or some of the other younger guys there. But he'll
touch on it, because we haven't talked about is Goddard. Apparently, they're shopping Goddard. Now, again, why are they shopping Goddard? They apparently don't consider him part of the core. Goddard's a great player. We all know his talent's there, but he's also hurt all the time.
Yep.
And he's expensive. And he's now 30 years old.
Yep.
So Howie's looking to see if we can. Now, here's the thing. I wish they had more of a plan B because you lose Goddard.
Well, Calcaterra, so you lose Goddard, you lose the tush push, right? So they pick up Dillon to replace Goddard for the tush push stuff. But Calcaterra can play. Calcaterra had his best season as an Eagle.
Yeah, but he can't block. He's not a good blocker. That's the thing.
Not as much of a blocker, but that's why they probably pulled Summerlin back in too. If they lose Goddard, they got Summerlin there, who did catch a pass last year as well. So
I forgot to mention that. Yeah, so the Eagles did re-sign for a 1-year contract Van Sumeren. So
I love that signing because I thought that was an interesting little fun player, like a wild card on offense.
Yeah,
is that guy. So, and I think that's the key. If they trade Goddard, that's because they feel comfortable with making Van Summerlin take up some of that blocking responsibility.
Yeah, this is a decent draft also for tight ends from what I'm understanding. So there's some decent tight ends in here. I'm sure the Eagles are going to draft a tight end with one of these picks.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could, if you looked at, all right, so let's just real quick. What were the top 3 needs going into the draft after free agency? This year, going into this year's draft with the initial move of free agency.
Tackle and defensive end will be the top 2 for me.
Top 2? So restocking at defensive end?
And tight end. Well, defensive tackle, end, and tight end. Those would be my top 3.
Okay. I'm not sure I would disagree. I think you could also throw in maybe a defensive back just because they lost 2, Rodgers and Slay.
Yeah.
But O-line and D-line makes sense to me. So,
yeah. Yeah, and that's the safety you mentioned out of Georgia. If he's hanging around there late, that might be a guy that the Eagles didn't expect to be there. And they now have a need at safety, not knowing if Sydney's still kind of a question mark. Then you have a guy that you can, like, if he is an Ed Reed type safety, I mean, why wouldn't you try to bring him in?
Yeah. Yeah.
Much as we love Sidney Brown, they're not comparing him to Ed Reed.
No, I saw some tape on Starks today, and I was like, that does look like the real deal at safety. So,
yeah.
Who knows?
But I'm excited. I hope Sidney does get a chance. I definitely think, like I said, we're not going to miss any physicality, emotion, passion from CJ departing with Sidney coming in. We're not going to lose any of that. No. Definitely not.
Plus,
Sidney gets into it on just special teams plays with the other team.
Yeah.
And he's
Carter,
he's on the field 3 times in a game, 4 times in a game, and he's always stirring it up with somebody.
Several of these guys have the it factor on the field. Jalen Carter, Zach Bond, Cooper DeJean, all of those 3 guys play with a lot of intensity and emotion. Quentin Mitchell just seems to be like a silent killer on the cornerback spot.
He talks though. He'll let the wide receiver
talk smack. Yeah, better than anybody.
Yeah, he does talk some smack.
But they'll have plenty of emotion even without CJ.
He looks like he's another passionate type of guy too. And obviously Nolan Smith, those guys.
Yeah. So they're not going to miss him in that regard. They'll be fine. They'll be fine with the emotion. They'll show up.
The guy I keep my eye on is Ojomo, because again, I watched a quick little highlights. I don't know where I saw it. Like a quick little, and man, he has violent hands. Like I didn't really notice during the season. Yeah. I saw him making plays and stuff, but when you see him from the beginning of the play, from the snap,
matters.
He's knocking the hell out of him.
It opens up everything else that you need.
Yeah.
Who's he playing next to? Oh, it's Jalen Carter. He's gonna be good. Yeah. It's smart, is what I say.
Yeah. So don't hit the panic button, fans. And my message is this: don't hit the panic, Eagle fans. Don't hit the button, and don't expect Howie to make some big splash. If it happens and we're wrong, listen, I've been wrong before. Not wrong that much, but when I am, like I was wrong about Barkley, I was adamant. All the rumors about Barkley becoming an Eagle, that's probably the biggest mistake and error that I ever made, because I'm like, there's no way it's happening.
Nope, I was right there with you. Yep, die on that sword.
I thought that was total nonsense. So occasionally I miss the boat, but I'd be shocked if the Eagles make some huge trade or whatever that some fans are expecting him to do because he's letting all these guys go. Don't expect it. With that said, Matt and I will be back in a week. I'm sure there's going to be more news because the Eagles just always seem to remain in the news. But we'll see what happens with Becton, where he lands. Does he come back to the Eagles?
I think there's a chance we get him back.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a shot.
In the meantime, Eagles fans can mark themselves safe from getting Jalen Reagor back because he did sign with the Chargers.
Is he still in the league?
Yeah, he signed today. And I'm like,
out. Man.
Just putting it out there. Want to make
sure. That's interesting.
Well, that Jalen Reagor is still not an Eagle.
Yeah. Wow. Thankfully, we can look back and just laugh at that and not be pissed because the Eagles have been able to correct and right the ship after that blowing that pick so badly. It still hurts because it's interesting because if they actually did draft Jefferson, there wouldn't be A.J. Brown here.
No. So, and there may not be Devontae Smith.
May not be Devontae here. Yeah. So, I don't know. It was totally a miss, though. That's for sure. Just says Howie's not perfect. He's human.
Yeah. So
it's like Ivan Drago and Rocky.
So Jalen Reagor was the key piece of this football team. He's the one that made Howie realize
between him and Carson Wentz, believe it or not. Because when they made that trade, they were able to eat the money. Like, give credit Lurie for that, because not many owners would eat a whole contract with the Eagles did and have him be playing for another team. But Lurie sucked it up and ate the contract, and they traded him off, and they got a bunch back in return. There's a meme out there, and maybe I'll share it the next podcast, that shows what the Eagles turned every one of those Carson Wentz picks into. It's amazing.
Gold.
Yeah.
It's genius. Like, it's a master's class of GMing. And Howie sniffed something there way before anybody else did when he drafted Hurts. People look back and they're like, what are you doing? I wasn't even a fan of it either. I'm like, why are you putting pressure on your number one starter? But I'm like, clearly there was a crack in the ego there.
Yeah.
Howie knew it and was like, this guy's got to get out of here quick. So
for sure. So you got to give credit. You got to give credit to Howie for that too, because no one. Of course, we're distant from that. We didn't identify that, but Howie definitely noticed there's a crack in how mentally strong. Not only just the mental, because I think we actually saw that he wasn't mentally strong, but just the relationships and that he was having with his teammates was not that good.
Yep.
And you can't have a quarterback who's not getting along with the team.
Nope.
Or just as like, and I don't know if it was even intentional. It's just like he just wasn't it's just his personality. Just
not the right guy.
Didn't really gel with anybody. So would have been funny though. We didn't really talk about it, but before we leave here, I meant to talk about it in our Super Bowl preview. Can you imagine if like it was a closer game in the Super Bowl and the Eagles injured Mahomes and Carson Wentz had to come in and play the Eagles in the fourth quarter?
We would have scored
close to potentially happening.
We would have scored a couple more touchdowns on defense, is what would have happened.
Yeah, that would have been.
Hero ball would have definitely come out. We'd be like, get ready, boys. Ball's coming.
I tell you what, Wentz, he definitely drew the short straw, man, because he had, he got hurt in the year he was going to be MVP. He was having a great season. He gets injured. Obviously, we know what happened with Foles coming in and finishing the job, winning the Super Bowl. And then, obviously, everything that happened in history we just talked about with him getting booted out, with Jalen Hurts coming in. And if that happened also, like he comes in to the game, the Super Bowl, throws a pick six and loses the game. Even though he wasn't in the game, he still lost to his former team and a person who was his backup.
That's a Greek tragedy right there.
Yeah. So anyway, any closing thoughts before we end the podcast?
No, quick shout out. I know there's one watcher of our show pretty regularly, Corey, down in Florida. So just a quick shout out. He's watching. I don't know if he's left any comments, but if you go back and read through the show,
okay.
He's got.
Corey, leave us a comment if you haven't. Just put it on one of the videos. Just give us a shout out so I see you on there. But yeah, thanks for watching, Corey. I assume he's an Eagles fan.
No, Buccaneers.
Who is he?
He's a Buccaneers fan. Well, he's
right.
He's a Niners fan in Florida, but he's got the home team to root for too. So
he's one of the few fans out there who has bragging rights on the Eagles because we can't beat the freaking Bucs.
Can't beat the Buccaneers.
Nope. People. I mean, I was telling people the one team I did not want to see the Eagles play in the playoffs this last season, as good as the Eagles were, was the Bucs because we just can't beat that team.
No.
And I was afraid that Spagnuolo would go to town and what, Tampa Bay's been able to do to shut down Hurts and this entire offense to make it so anemic the Eagles can't do anything on offense. Yep. But apparently Spagnuolo didn't do that.
Thankfully, he didn't make any phone calls.
Yeah.
All right.
Shout out to Corey. Thanks for watching. Thanks everybody for watching. Make sure, by the way, eventually we're going to go live streaming, but we got to build an audience first, so we need your help with that. Like, subscribe, share to fellow fans, Eagle fans, NFC East fans, anyone. We even got a Buccaneers fan on there, so that's cool. Thank you for watching. Matt, thanks again. We'll catch you guys back in a week. Until then, like I said, don't be jumping off any bridges, Eagle fans. We're going to be fine. And
we're still Super Bowl champions.
It's right. Actually, as of today, because of the brand new season, officially, we've gone from Super Bowl champions to defending Super Bowl champions.
Defending Super Bowl champions.
New season is underway. So, all right, with that, fly Eagles fly, and we'll catch you all next time. Till then, take care and go Birds. See you later.